You know what he does?
What?
He turns the head waiter across the room.
Then he starts back here.
Yeah, dames scream, guys yell.
Manager hears the commotion.
He goes to the door, sees the guy.
Then he runs back to the desk.
For a Roscoe, he takes aim.
Fires.
Twice. Like you can see, he missed.
Too bad.
Will the police apprehend the killer? Tune in tomorrow at 6:50.
Go on, give me the rest of it.
The Falcon, a suave and brilliant detective, gets drawn into a murder mystery filled with suspicious characters, all of whom seem to be hiding something. And with danger lurking around every corner and murders building up, can our detective hero get to the bottom of this case while also avoiding a very dangerous killer? The Falcon Takes Over from 1942 was a quick-moving, enjoyable detective story, and honestly, this was my first venture into the Falcon series of movies, and I really enjoyed this one. So I'll give a quick, spoiler-free summary of the film, and then share some closing thoughts. Well, the film opens up, and we see this recently escaped convict, the character Moose Malloy, played by the towering actor Ward Bond. Now, he shows up at a nightclub, and he's looking for a woman named Velma. Now, unable to find her, he forces his way into the office of the club manager and leaves him behind murdered, then flees the scene in a car, one belonging to the character Goldie Locke, played by Alan Jenkins, and basically orders him to drive to get away. Now, soon after this, the Falcon arrives at the club, and he is this debonair detective played by George Sanders. And he instantly takes an interest in this mystery and starts investigating, and soon discovers that the woman being looked for is tied to a much larger web, one involving shady characters who all seem to have something to hide. Now, the police inspector, Michael O'Hara, played by James Gleason, briefs him on the murder, and soon he, along with his comical partner Goldie and intrepid newspaper reporter Anne Reardon, played by actress Lynn Barry, continue to follow the trail that leads off into multiple directions and more deaths. Well, can the Falcon uncover what's going on as he encounters numerous sketchy characters and lovely women as he tries to piece together this mystery? Well, I'll let you check out the exciting ending for yourself to see how things unfold. The Falcon Takes Over was released in 1942 and was produced by RKO and directed by Irving Rice. Now, my thoughts on this one was that I enjoyed it. It's a fast and clever detective story with a nice bit of humor mixed in as well. George Sanders, as the Falcon, is this very cool, smooth, witty, and believable detective out to solve the mystery. I don't know, to me he's sort of a mix of Philip Marlowe, Michael Shayne, a little bit of Sherlock Holmes, and I thought his character did a good job carrying the film along. The story itself is tight and breezy. It's not one straightforward murder, but rather this complicated series of deaths. There's some red herrings on the way, and plenty of humor too. And this one's actually interesting because it's loosely based on Raymond Chandler's book, Farewell, My Lovely. So you can kind of get the feel of this being a mystery that, you know, Detective Philip Marlowe could have been investigating. And some of the characters in the film, like Moose Malloy, and what a name, you know, they're taken from the story as well. However, if you want a closer telling of this story, the film Murder My Sweet from 1944 is probably a little bit closer to the mark. I thought the supporting cast was all excellent as well. Lynn Barry, as this resourceful reporter, paired up with the Falcon nicely. And I liked Alan Jenkins as his over-the-top comic relief. I thought he was a lot of fun. He had me laughing through the film. He's very silly. And at one point, he even does a little bit of the Leo Gorcey malaprisms. You know, he says something like, "You can't pin nothing on me until you prove corpus delicious." And this actor always seems to be showing up as the goofball in old movies. I remember Alan Jenkins from the lesser-known film The Hatbox Mystery from 1947, where he would get his hamburger sandwich with extra onions. So some of the background I learned while researching this film, as mentioned earlier, this was my first trip into the Falcon series. And apparently, originally, there were two Falcon characters from this era. Michael Arlen created this version of the character in 1940. And just to clarify, the Falcon isn't like a superhero or anything, no superpowers. He's just this freelance adventurer, like a detective who just pursues cases that he finds interesting. However, there's another different Falcon character, one created by Drexel Drake in his 1936 novel, The Falcon's Prey. This Falcon is also an investigator and starred in a number of Falcon novels, but best I can determine there were never movies made based on his version of the Falcon. So, there you go, two different Falcons, but I'll be focusing on the Michael Arlen version of the Falcon character here, who was brought to the big screen by RKO Radio Pictures. Now, the first film with this character, from 1941, The Gay Falcon, introduced this English detective played by George Sanders, who at this point in history had previously starred in the Saint series of films. And this character was not terribly different than the Falcon. So close, in fact, that apparently there was a lawsuit at one point, as it was argued that the Falcon was just like a copy of the Saint. Leslie Charteris, the author of the Saint books, was furious and brought a suit against RKO. And the studio eventually settled with Charteris out of court, and they kept on with the Falcon films. George Sanders was in the earlier run of Falcon films, and apparently didn't really enjoy playing this character, considering it beneath his dignity. So after the fourth Falcon movie, The Falcon's Brother, from 1942, the Falcon character is killed off, only to be replaced by his brother, played by Sanders' real-life brother, Tom Conway. And Conway would play the Falcon in 9 more Falcon films. And you can see both actors. There's definitely some similarities between the two, notably the voice. With George Sanders, what to me stands out most clearly, from his voice especially, is I remember him from growing up and watching the animated Jungle Book from 1967. And that's where he voiced the tiger, Shere Khan. And honestly, while researching this film, I discovered that Sanders had a wild background, and he would really be ideal for a future biography video once I've seen a few more of his films. There's one in particular, all about Eve, for which he won an Oscar, I actually haven't seen yet, and it definitely needs to be one I need to watch and review for the channel someday. And an amusing bit of trivia from IMDb, if true, is that to avoid confusion in their different career paths, George and his brother Tom had flipped a coin to decide who would have to change their last name. So Tom lost the flip, and he dialed a random number and reached Conway's Fish Market, and from that point on became known as Tom Conway. Now, sadly, George Sanders openly spoke of ending his life when he got older. In 1972, he did so, leaving this note behind. The quote is, "Dear world, I'm leaving because I am bored. I feel I have lived long enough. I'm leaving you with your worries in this sweet cesspool. Good luck." He died by reportedly taking an overdose of barbiturates. Now, Rob, you may say, if you're new to this series, why'd you just jump into episode 3 and not start from the very beginning? Well, there's a couple reasons. Probably the main one being is that I read that this particular film was a good starting place. And plus the fact I was reading about it and how it was based on a Raymond Chandler story, and that was interesting to me. And honestly, that's just how I roll on this channel. I know it's weird. I did something similar with the Michael Shayne films too, and I'll probably do the same thing with the Charlie Chan series one of these days as well. It's just how I work, I guess. Now, a couple other notes, and then I'll wrap up this review. I really enjoyed James Gleason as the police inspector and some of his comical interactions with Detective Bates, played by Edward Gargan. And it was great to see a brief appearance by Turhan Bey as the fortune teller. Curiously enough, I remember him as the fortune teller in a different film, The Amazing Mr. X, which was a beautifully shot film from 1948 with some of that rich cinematography by John Alton. So it was interesting, too, that Lynn Barry was in that film as well. But in any case, The Falcon Takes Over from 1942 was my first dive into this classic RKO detective series. And I was immediately hooked on this. It's very entertaining. I enjoyed the mystery, and I like the characters. George Sanders and Lynn Barry lead a film that's full of clever murder mystery and a lot of silly humor. And looking forward to checking out more of the Falcon's adventures. So this was a great film, and it's one worth checking out.
You two can find better ways of staying out of trouble and poking your noses in police affairs. Now get out and stay out of my hair. Which hair? Okay, I know.